Okay, so let's dive into this wild story brewing up in the North Atlantic. It's all about Greenland, the world's largest island, and a situation that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. But believe me, it's becoming dangerously real. So let's just start with this question right here. Could the United States really attack one of its own allies just to grab some land? I know, it sounds absolutely insane, but that question isn't just for shock value. As we're about to see, it's at the very heart of a real crisis that could totally reshape global alliances. So, how on earth did we get here? I mean, a potential conflict between two NATO allies? It's supposed to be unthinkable. Well, to get our heads around it, we first need to look at the current political climate and, frankly, the pretty alarming logic that's being used to justify such a radical move. And look, this isn't just some hypothetical conversation anymore. There's an actual bill that's been introduced in the US Congress. It's called the Greenland Annexation and Statehood Act. And its goal? To give the president the power to, well, to just take control of Greenland. This is what has pushed the whole thing from being a weird headline into a full-blown potential crisis. Now, let's just remember, Greenland is a self-governing territory of Denmark. Denmark, a key American ally. And you better believe both the Greenlandic and Danish governments have been crystal clear about this. They have firmly rejected any talk of a sale or a takeover time and time again. Their message is simple. Greenland is not for sale. Okay, but this is where the justification gets really controversial. The logic being used by the US, that total control is a must for national security to keep rivals like Russia and China out, it sounds familiar, right? That's because it is almost the exact same argument the US has slammed Russia for using in Ukraine. The parallel is striking and, frankly, pretty dangerous. And the stakes here, they couldn't be higher. The entire foundation of NATO rests on one single principle. An attack on one is an attack on all. So, what happens if one member attacks another member? An American move against Danish territory would put the alliance in an impossible position. It's a paradox that would literally shatter NATO from the inside out. So, you might be thinking, where did this even come from? Is this just some new kind of rogue idea? Well, as it turns out, this isn't new at all. America's fascination with Greenland, it goes back a long way. We're talking about a strategic goal that's been on the books for a century. Way back in the 1910s, President Woodrow Wilson tried to buy it. Then, after World War II, Harry Truman offered what was then a whopping $100 million for it. And by 1951, the US had solidified its presence with a massive air base. But here's the key difference today. The tone has shifted from, can we buy it, to something much, much more aggressive. Which brings up a really important question, right? If the US already has a critical military base in Greenland, why the sudden aggressive push for total control right now? What's changed? The answer? Well, it's not on the surface. It's buried deep beneath all that ice. For centuries, Greenland's immense potential was basically locked away. It was hidden under a massive fortress of ice, with all its secrets frozen and totally inaccessible to the world. I mean, just think about it. Over 80% of the island is buried under a colossal sheet of ice. For generations, that made getting to any resources, or even just developing the land, pretty much impossible. But that is rapidly changing. Global warming is the game changer here. The melting ice is revealing a literal treasure trove of opportunities. We're talking new, faster shipping routes between Asia and Europe. We're talking about vast, untouched reserves of oil, gas, and precious metals. And, of course, it's an unparalleled strategic position for monitoring the entire Arctic. Militarily, Greenland's location is just perfect. It's the northern anchor of what's known as the GI-UK Gap. That's the area between Greenland, Iceland, and the UK. It's a critical naval choke point. Any Russian submarine that wants to get into the Atlantic has to pass through this gap. That makes controlling it the single most important monitoring point for the entire NATO alliance. But beyond military strategy and new shipping routes, there is an even bigger economic prize hidden beneath the ice. And this one has global superpowers scrambling for position. And this chart reveals a massive vulnerability for the West. Right now, China absolutely dominates the global supply of rare earth elements. That gives them incredible leverage over the technologies that power our modern world. Now, the name rare earths is a little misleading. They're not actually that rare, but they are absolutely crucial for high-tech manufacturing. They are the fundamental building blocks of, well, everything. The smartphone in your pocket, the batteries in an electric car, wind turbines, and of course, the most advanced missile guidance systems and fighter jets. And this isn't just a government-level interest either. Private capital from some of America's biggest names in tech and finance, we're talking Bill Gates, Peter Thiel, is already flowing into Greenland. They're positioning themselves to capitalize on the thaw, which just adds even more economic pressure to all the geopolitical maneuvering. So, what would a U.S. takeover of Greenland actually mean for the rest of the world? A move like this wouldn't happen in a vacuum. The shockwaves would be felt across the entire international system. The most profound consequence? It would be the potential end of the rules-based international order that has, for the most part, kept the peace for decades. It would signal a return to an era of might makes right, where powerful nations can just take what they want. I mean, think about the precedent this would set. If the world's leading power just ignores another country's sovereignty to get what it wants, it's basically giving a green light for other nations to do the same. This could embolden countries with their own expansionist ambitions, potentially destabilizing hotspots all over the globe. And so we are left with a final and pretty chilling question. This whole standoff over Greenland is about so much more than just an icy island. It is a test case for the future of alliances, of sovereignty, and of international law itself. The outcome here won't just decide the fate of Greenland, it could very well define the world we're all going to live in for generations to come.